If you knew anything about command, you wouldn't be pushing a mop. The Admiral said it loud, loud enough for everyone to hear. Laughter followed, not because it was funny, but because no one wanted to be the first to question him. She didn't respond, not right away. She just reached into her cart, pulled out a matte black badge, and held it up like a mirror. Fleet Commander, Naval Intelligence. And you're standing in my crime scene, Admiral. The deck went quiet. The coffee in his hand hit the floor. Not by accident. He just mocked the one person who had been embedded in his ship for 91 days, tracking the very men he trusted with his life. He thought she was invisible. She was just waiting. Stick around, because this wasn't about revenge. This was about a woman who let them laugh, just long enough to hang themselves. Let me ask you something. If someone mocked you in front of your team, called you out like you didn't matter, would you stay quiet just to keep the peace? Or would you tell them exactly who you are? Drop your answer in the comments. Seriously, because too many people stay quiet while someone else rewrites their worth. And if you've ever been looked through, talked over, or laughed at because of your uniform, your gender, or your silence, don't scroll. This story is yours. Keep watching, because the same woman they mocked just turned the entire fleet upside down. Before they stuck her on a mop detail, Sarah Mitchell had an office 3 floors below the Pentagon, no windows, 2 locks, and a terminal that could access half the satellites over the Pacific. She was the kind of analyst people called when everything else had failed. The kind who didn't ask for credit, didn't need supervision, and didn't sleep much. Her last operation uncovered a double agent buried inside naval logistics, cleaned it out with nothing but chat logs, timestamps, and an instinct no algorithm could replicate. So yeah, when Fleet Command pulled her aside and said, "We think we've got a leak on the Stennis," she wasn't the one asking questions. They said she was too smart for grunt work, too valuable for the shadows. But when that carrier group started bleeding classified data, when live defense nodes started dropping offline during exercises, Sarah didn't ask for a desk. She said 3 words, "I'll disappear." And just like that, she was gone. Sealed orders, no rank, no name, no clearance. She walked onto the USS Stennis dressed as a janitor, one of dozens. Yellow jumpsuit, no salute, no briefing, just the bucket and the building rage in her chest. Because this wasn't just about stolen data. This was personal. Her mother died 15 years earlier during an intelligence failure, one no one ever took responsibility for. A woman buried with honors and unanswered questions. Sarah didn't forget. Now she was back on a warship, like her mother had been. Only this time, she wasn't watching from the outside. This time she was inside the machine. Quiet, unseen, listening. 90 days undercover, no backup, no contact, no breaks. They saw a mop. She saw a network of digital fingerprints and nervous conversations. They saw routine. She saw a trail. And day by day, that trail narrowed to one truth. There was a spy on that ship. And if she moved too soon, 5,000 lives would pay the price. Stick around, because one mistake on her part, and this story ends in body bags. It happened on day 62, middle of a Pacific Fleet joint exercise. Multiple carrier strike groups running live scenarios. Simulated hostiles, real weapons locked in standby. Everything synced, everything timed. Sarah was in a lower corridor, patching into an auxiliary panel behind a laundry unit no one had touched in weeks. She'd been watching signal pings for hours, waiting for something she couldn't quite name. Then it hit. A burst, quick, tucked inside a janitorial equipment barcode, like an automated inventory scan. But it wasn't inventory. She froze, headset in. Packet masked under layer cycled routing, rerouted to a relay buoy that wasn't logged on any manifest. On paper, it was trash data. But in the rhythm, something felt wrong. She dug deeper. 5 seconds in, she saw what it was. The signal wasn't pulling data. It was feeding a kill code. Time to go active mid-exercise, just as the fleet defense system rerouted into wargame coordination mode. The system would treat it as a drill until it shut down. 3 carriers, blind, wide open, right in the middle of hostile waters. Not espionage, Not data theft. Sabotage. And she was the only person on board who even knew what was coming. She yanked her mic. Command, this is... Pause. This is... Clean Sweep Alpha. I have a grid compromise in progress. Origin appears internal. Static. She tried again. No bounce. No response. Her mic channel had been redirected. Someone on board had looped her comms into a ghost log. She stared at the screen. Watched the countdown. 97 minutes to fleet-wide sync failure. That meant ships wouldn't see each other. Missile systems would go dark. IFF, identify friend or foe, would stall. I'd be cleaning up body bags instead of bulkheads. That's what she told herself. One more second of waiting, and the people walking past her every day, they'd never make it home. She backed away from the wall panel and leaned over her cart, opened the mop bucket lid, pulled the emergency drive she was never supposed to use. But this wasn't a drill anymore. No one knew she existed. Her badge didn't scan. Her face wasn't in the crew manifest. Mitchell to override terminal, she muttered, whispering into her device. Command authority confirmed. Operation Foxglass is now active. 2 seconds later, her access window blinked green. The system had accepted the override. She had one shot to shut down the breach without exposing herself, without triggering the mole. Because if they knew she was watching, they'd hit the kill switch early, and people would die before anyone knew what went wrong. If you believe intelligence officers shouldn't have to fight their own command just to save the lives of the very people ignoring them, subscribe right now, because this isn't fiction. This is a warning. She chose to act alone. The next hour would decide whether 5,000 people lived or died, and she was running out of time. 34 minutes to failure. Sarah had shut down the breach. Barely. The system was running on a bypass, a last-ditch circuit she'd patched through a drone maintenance loop. But the infection wasn't fully contained, and the moment the source realized they'd been blocked, they'd try again. That's when Admiral Hawkins arrived. Transport down, SEAL escort tight, decorated, direct, proud. The kind of man who barked before he listened. Where's the damn comms chief? He barked, stepping onto the flight deck. Someone explain why we dropped signal during a live-fire drill. A junior officer pointed toward the starboard wing, where Sarah stood, alone, holding a mop. He marched up, eyes narrowing. Hey, sweetheart, he called, loud enough for everyone to hear. You look lost. She didn't respond. Pretty ballsy, wandering near classified zones in a janitor suit. She turned her head, looked at him. Admiral, she said, calm, you're standing in the middle of a compromised perimeter. This entire wing was rerouted using access codes assigned from your office. He raised an eyebrow, half smiling. Cute. You got a name, sweetheart? She reached into the mop bucket, pulled a sealed black badge from beneath a cloth rag, raised it level with her chest. Fleet Commander Sarah Mitchell, Naval Intelligence. The air changed. No one laughed. Not the officers behind him. Not the SEALs. Not the Admiral. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His grip loosened. The coffee he was holding spilled out of his cup, splashing onto the floor. Because in that moment, he realized the woman he'd just mocked outranked every man in that hallway. You, he started quietly, you're the one who stopped your command from walking blind into a catastrophic grid collapse? Yes. She took a step closer. And now I'm here to debrief you, sir, because 2 of the saboteurs came from your personal staff. The Admiral's face lost color, not from fear, from the weight of it. He didn't collapse to the ground, no, but his authority did. Right there, in front of his team, his men, his reputation. He folded. I wasn't informed, he muttered. You weren't cleared. Your office was compromised. The only reason this ship isn't under foreign control is because you didn't notice the janitor. And for the first time in his career, he said nothing. And the 2 men who handed him his daily briefings, they were already in handcuffs, waiting behind the blast doors. She stood there in front of the Admiral, no apology, no ceremony, holding the folded dossier she'd been building since day one. Every conversation, every ping, every ghost signature buried beneath the surface of routine. You never saw me, she said, but I've seen everything. and she meant it. Because what you didn't see was Sarah, sitting in the corner of the mess hall, wiping down a table as two senior comms officers laughed over breakfast, joking about systems glitches like they weren't testing backdoor commands during live drills. One of them passed a napkin across the table. She traced the grease smudge pattern later, mapped it to an entry code used to mask outbound pings through the engineering bay's auto-clean cycle. Another time, she overheard a game of poker in the lounge. Coded slang, words that meant nothing to anyone else. The laundry's heavy today. We'll hang it out after Friday's fog. Most called it small talk. She ran it through a naval cryptographic filter. The phrase aligned with a scheduled blackout window across fleet comms, engineered downtime for maintenance. But Sarah knew what it really was. Cover. They were going to exfil data when the whole ship thought they were rebooting for diagnostics. And the worst part? They used her. They'd cloned her login, laundered access through her janitor ID. If anything went wrong, she would have taken the fall. She didn't report it then. Couldn't. Not without proof. Not without burning the whole op. But she made a note of it. She always made a note. One of them, Collins, was just a kid. Quiet. Always looked like he was trying to stay out of the way. One night, during a systems lockdown drill, he helped her pry open a jammed hatch. She thanked him, said nothing more. What he never knew was that she'd found his name on a forged clearance request 2 days earlier. It wasn't his doing. Someone had spoofed his credentials to access fleet override systems. She blocked it, quietly, rerouted the breach to a honeypot server, and flagged the pattern. He thought I was just a kind janitor, she said later. He never knew I saved his life before it even started. And that's what broke people when the truth came out. Not just that she had the clearance, or the badge, or the power, but that she'd been right there the whole time, serving them, protecting them, while they ignored her. The Admiral finally spoke again. I should have known something was off, he said low. I didn't see it. She opened the dossier, held it out, every page, every intercepted message, red lines stretching across access logs, timestamps, ship schematics, leading in one clear direction. Your executive officer, your tech chief, and your security analyst, she said. They're the breach. They've been rerouting traffic off ship since July. The Admiral took the folder. Didn't argue, didn't question. Because the moment he looked down, he saw his own signature authorizing 3 of those access windows. Whether he'd known or not, he was already part of the paper trail. How many brilliant women walk through your office, your unit, your command, unnoticed, until something explodes? How many times do you laugh with people who are paid to look sharp, but miss everything that matters? Subscribe now if you believe no uniform, no title, and no ego should ever silence the one person willing to stop a disaster alone. The names were on the record now. Arrests were coming. But Sarah Mitchell, she still had one more thing to say, and it wasn't over. They didn't hear the boots at first, just the sudden shift in posture, heads turning, radios crackling to life. Naval security swept the corridor with practiced force, weapons low, voices high. Lieutenant Combs, stand down. Chief Willis, drop the device and raise your hands. The Admiral's comms chief didn't argue. Neither did the executive assistant. They stepped back, hands raised, not because they were scared, but because they knew. She had them, completely. Their logins, rerouted transmissions, digital shell games, exposed, and not by an entire cyber division, by one woman. With a mop in one hand and the truth in the other. The cuffs clicked into place. I want a secure hold. Full isolation. No comms, Sarah said to the lead MP. They don't talk to anyone but me or Rear Admiral Sutter. The team nodded, already moving. The hallway cleared. Then the call came through, patched to the command channel. The voice cut through the tension like steel on glass. This is Rear Admiral Sutter. Full operational debrief is to be conducted under the authority of Commander Sarah Mitchell. That's not a request. That's a command. Everyone heard it. Every deck, every terminal. The Admiral didn't say a word. He stood there, his posture straight but hollow, watching as his men were led away in silence. Everything he'd built, everything he'd trusted, flipped. Sarah stepped forward. No uniform, no stripes, just the yellow jumpsuit. And the mop handle she still held like a staff. She didn't raise her voice. Respect is earned, Admiral, and yours is overdue. He turned to face her. You think I failed, he said. No, she replied. I think you stopped looking, and people like me paid for it. He swallowed but didn't argue. What do you want from me? She didn't pause. I want your attention for the men and women you never saw, the ones who get passed over, talked over, brushed aside. Like you. Like my mother? That name hit harder than anything else she'd said. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. She was on the Corwin, wasn't she? He asked low. Sarah nodded once. She died because no one listened when she flagged an anomaly in signal compression. Her report was buried in a tech audit that no one followed up on. And 2 weeks later, 38 sailors didn't come home. A pause. You were on the board that closed the case? The silence this time wasn't tactical. It was heavy. The Admiral looked down, then back up. We didn't have the full picture. You didn't want it, she said. So I built it myself. And now the full picture stood right in front of him, alive, undeniable, and unshakable. You took her uniform. I took her fight. For a long moment, no one moved. No one breathed. The mop handle in her hand wasn't a tool anymore. It was a reminder of everything she carried, of everyone she'd lost. Recognition was coming, sure, but this wasn't about medals. This was about justice. For a woman the Navy forgot, and a daughter who made sure the silence didn't win. The corridors of the Stennis never sounded so still. Not in wartime, not in drills, not even in storms. Word traveled fast. Within minutes, every division knew the janitor with the mop was Fleet Commander Mitchell. Naval intelligence, embedded for 91 days. Mission classified. Objective, uncover sabotage within the chain of command. She'd done all of it without a team, without a uniform, without a single person calling her ma'am. Now she stood at the center of the main deck. No sirens, no speeches. Just a battered cart parked beside her, a sealed evidence bag resting where the cleaning solution used to be. A few officers formed a loose circle nearby. No one said a word. Rear Admiral Sutter arrived by comms drone. His voice crackled over the deck PA. Let this be entered into fleet record. Operation Fox Glass concluded. Target assets confirmed. Command breach isolated. Commander Mitchell, authority verified. Outcome, success. A pause. Losses, 0. Lives saved, 5,000. Then something happened that doesn't happen often on Navy decks. They stepped forward, one by one, not saluting, not marching, just men and women who'd walked past her 100 times. Finally seeing her. A petty officer spoke first. Commander, I handed you a mop last week. I thought, she cut him off gently. You followed protocol. That's not on you. Another stepped in. I snapped at you for tracking footprints through the corridor. I didn't know. You weren't supposed to, she said. That's what made it work. Then came Collins, the young sailor, the one who helped her open the hatch weeks ago. He didn't know whether to stand at attention or hang his head. You saved me, didn't you? He asked. The override they flagged. That was meant to pin me, she nodded. And it won't touch your record. I made sure. He exhaled, eyes wide. I thought you were just kind. That was the easiest part of the job, she replied. Admiral Hawkins hadn't left. He stood in silence, watching. Eventually he walked over. Mitchell, I failed this command. I own that. I didn't come here for an apology, sir. Then why are you still here? She turned to face him fully. Because I want this to matter. I want the next woman walking these decks to get heard the first time. Not after everything breaks. He gave a slow nod. You'll have my full recommendation. Don't write it for me. Write it for the next one. They locked eyes. Nothing else needed saying. Hours later, when the arrest transport lifted off, Sarah stayed. She didn't request extraction. She didn't pack out. She went right back to her quarters, behind the maintenance locker. Same cot, same silence. She'd earned a medal, but what she wanted more was change, and command listened. Her debrief led to 7 investigations, 4 transfers, 3 promotions for analysts who'd been stuck in silence, and a new regulation, quietly written into Navy intel doctrine: no operator embedded without embedded support. That line carried her mother's name. Section 4B, Subclause 7. Mitchell Clause. She never requested credit, never asked to be saluted. But word spread, and the next time a woman in yellow walked past on a carrier deck, people paused before speaking. Just long enough to ask, "Are you supposed to be here?" Because now they understood. She didn't clean floors. She cleaned out a betrayal so deep it nearly shattered the Pacific Fleet. And she did it alone. But she wasn't the only one walking around invisible. You've seen someone like her. You just didn't realize it at the time. And the question now is, are you still looking away? If this story made your chest tighten, if you felt even a second of silence you've known before, don't scroll past. Tap like, tap subscribe, and tell us in the comments, have you ever been mistaken for less than what you are? For someone's assistant? For someone's backup? For someone whose job was to stay quiet, clean up the mess, and move on? Because here's the truth. The world doesn't fall apart when the loud ones get it wrong. It falls apart when the quiet ones are ignored. Commander Sarah Mitchell never raised her voice. She didn't flash rank. She didn't threaten. She didn't beg. She just worked and waited. And when the moment came, she told the truth, and the walls came down. So if you've ever had to sit in silence, if you've ever swallowed what you knew because the room didn't feel safe, if you've ever watched people laugh while you held the answer, then this story isn't just a story, it's yours. And it's a warning, because while you're working twice as hard to be noticed, someone else is walking through life with half the skill and all the attention. So don't let this video end without doing one thing. Make sure your voice stays in this room. Tap subscribe, write your name in the comments. And the next time someone sees a woman with a mop, a man with a stutter, a kid in the corner of the meeting, ask yourself, are you about to laugh? Or are you standing in their crime scene? Don't forget her name, Commander Sarah Mitchell. She didn't just stop a disaster. She made sure next time, the quiet ones won't be invisible.